Hello everyone, it's Alanis, also known as Atheist T-Girl. I am now doing part 1 of chapter 1 of Kent Hovind's doctoral thesis. I was planning originally doing chapter 1 as just one video, but this guy likes to ramble on way too much, and about stuff a thesis shouldn't even be about. So instead I've broken up into two pieces. This is part 1. I've also broken up into sections. Part 2 is going to contain 3 sections. This one's just going to contain Kent Hovind's understanding of evolution. And no, he doesn't understand it. I hope you all enjoy. Thank you.
So gender is just a social construct, and believing in God is a crutch. When you mix them together and give them a whirl, what do you got? Atheist T-Girl!
One of the many things that Kent gets wrong about evolution is evolution. He constantly uses the wrong definition for evolution, uses outdated ideas for evolution, and ignores any scientific evidence that supports evolution. The most generous I can be about this behavior is that he's being willfully ignorant, in that he knows he's wrong but has decided not to find out why, or ignores when it's given him evidence that he is wrong. But I generally think he uses the wrong definitions and the wrong ideas about evolution so that he can continue to make points that line up with what he teaches, and so that he can make money selling his books and making appearances.
Where in the world did the idea come from that things left to themselves can improve with time?
Right off the bat, this question is misleading. He's equating evolution with the idea that things can get better through time. That is not what evolution says. Evolution is a blind process, and there's no hierarchy that says this animal is better than this animal, or this plant is better than this plant. Instead, evolution makes changes, and then natural selection helps determine which changes evolution makes are the best for the environment that that animal is in, best suited for that environment, not the best animal. Simply put, evolution is change, and the result of natural selection is an organism that is better suited for the environment that it's inside. By making this question about things that are improving, he is setting up a straw man that he can easily take down.
The first law says that matter cannot be created nor destroyed by ordinary means. We do not see anything being created today, and yet we do see an entire universe of created material.
We have a few issues with this sentence. Number 1, why are we talking about thermodynamics when we're talking about evolution? Evolution is the change of living things. It does not deal with how the universe was created or how life started. Yet Kent continues to throw how the universe was created, how life started, and how that life changed into the theory of evolution. Let's, for argument's sake, say that science, as it currently understands it, is wrong about how the universe started and about how life began. This would not mean that the theory of evolution is wrong, because evolution is about the change of the life once it's here. A God could create life, and still evolution could be correct. In fact, that is how some Christians believe. The Bible and science agree. It's just the Bible is an allegory about how life was created, and that evolution was the real way that God made life here on earth, or had it evolved the way it is. The second thing wrong with this sentence is he gets the first law of thermodynamics wrong. Note that he says matter cannot be created or destroyed by ordinary means. Matter. The first law of thermodynamics deals with the conservation of energy, not matter. The first law of thermodynamics can be summed up as, and I'm going to read it just to make sure I don't get it wrong like Kent, although I've already read it wrong 3 times already. The law of conservation of energy states that the total energy of an isolated system is constant. Energy can be transformed from one form to another, but can neither be created or destroyed. And finally, for another argument's sake, let's give him the definition of the first law of thermodynamics as he wants it. Matter cannot be created or destroyed except through extraordinary means. A Big Bang would be considered an extraordinary mean. He wants us to think that God would be the only extraordinary mean of a way of matter being created, but by its definition, a Big Bang is very extraordinary and not what would be normal.
Evolution is purely a religion. There is no scientific evidence at all to back up any form of macroevolution. When I speak of evolution, I am not referring to small minor changes that naturally occur as animals have to make some adjustments to their environment. There is no similarity between microevolution and macroevolution.
No, evolution is not a religion. I am not going to argue this point here because he talks more about it in chapter 2. Maybe he'll prove his point and I'll change my mind. Spoiler, he doesn't prove his point and I don't change my mind. There is no difference between micro and macro evolution. Microevolution, which he agrees with, is small changes in organisms like the beaks on the Darwin's finches. Macroevolution is what you get over time as many microevolutions build upon one another and you end up with a different animal. Now, this is a vastly simplified statement, but I believe it's a pretty good summary of a way to describe micro and macro evolution. Macroevolution, according to Kent, is an event for where one animal changes to another. His explanation of macroevolution is demanding of a specific point where an animal is one animal and then the next instant another animal. That we could see two fossils that directly show they change each other. And any group of steps that show this change do not count to him because they are not the step that changed one animal to another. His explanation is demanding that there is a specific point where one animal changes to another. But the way he wants it is impossible. It would be like taking a jar of green paint and stirring it, and then very slowly putting a drop of red paint in it, and continuing to stir. After each drop of red paint, take a picture of what it is inside that jar. Keep stirring and keep adding another drop. Eventually you're going to end up with a jar of brown paint. Now take all those pictures and line them up and have someone look at them and tell you, where is this paint brown? They can say it's brown at the end, and they can show that it was green at the beginning, and they can show all the steps where it went from green to brown. Kent is expecting there to be one point where it was green and the very next point it being brown. And all the steps between it, which we call transitional fossils, would be invalid to him. He doesn't consider them transitional. He says, well, this is green, this is brown. He does not see a point where it eventually does changes. And he expects there to be that exact point.
The idea that evolutionists try to get across today is that there is a continual upward progression. They claim that everything is getting better, improving all by itself as if there is an inner drive toward more perfection and order. We don't see any evidence of this in the fossil record.
At no point does evolution say that a new species is better than the last. It is just better suited.
Not one of the buildings in a city built itself by the material rising up out of the ground. It did not happen that way. It does not ever happen that way. It never will happen that way.
You are correct. So it's a good thing that evolution is not about cities.
This Lamarck's hypothesis is known as the inheritance of acquired characteristics. There is no biologist today that believes this theory.
Lamarckian evolution did not happen, and it's been shown to be wrong. Kent brings this up as an example of how evolution has been wrong in the past. Lamarckian evolution was the idea that evolution happens during an animal's lifetime and that the change it sees is then passed down to its descendant, which will then have some more changes that will then pass down to the next one. So let's use, for example, a giraffe. In Lamarckian evolution, it would be said that there was an ordinary animal with a regular neck, and one day it's looking up and it sees a leaf just out of its reach, and it stretches really hard and its neck grew just a little bit, and so it had a slightly longer neck, and then it had a baby, and that baby had a slightly longer neck, and someday one of its babies is walking around and it sees another leaf just out of its reach, and it stretches, and now it's got a slightly longer neck. Again and again through life, the animals would stretch their neck just a little bit more, and eventually we ended up with the giraffe. But Lamarckian evolution is just a law that was inside the evolutionary theory. with science, you have a theory, which is something that has been agreed to happen and has evidence showing it happened. And then you have law, which is showing how it could happen, or how that theory is done. Lamarck came up with this idea of Lamarckian evolution, but science eventually showed it was wrong. And because it was wrong, it removed it from the theory of evolution, and it's no longer used. Science discarded Lamarckian evolution and then moved on to the next hypothesis to test to see if this is what caused the theory we know that happened. This is not a failure of the scientific method, it is instead a success. It is a way of refining theories until we get to the full mechanism by which it happened. And instead of dogmatically sticking to an idea like a creationist like Kent will do, we will look at something, and if the data doesn't fit, we will get rid of it and look for why it doesn't fit and what will fit it, rather than trying to make our data fit a preconceived notion. And tested it against what we knew as the scientific data. But Kent sees it as a failure, and thus all of evolution is a failure. I will give him credit, he is consistent about this. He believes the book of Genesis is 100% correct, and that if one piece of it is wrong, then all of it is wrong. And because he is insistent on this, when he is showing evidence that a part of the book of Genesis is wrong, or another part of the Bible is wrong, he insists the evidence is not correct, he ignores the data, and instead looks for data that will prove him right, or change data to fit it, because he can't admit that just one part of the Bible is wrong, or any part, because he's consistently saying every part of it is exactly as it happened.
The whole idea of the geologic column is based on uniformitarianism, or the present is the key to the past.
Okay, I'm going to read this because it's long and difficult and I don't want to get it wrong. Uniformitarianism, also known as the doctrine of uniformity, refers to the invariance in the principles underpinning science, such as the constancy of causality or causation throughout time. What Kent is describing here is gradualism. Gradualism was a concept used to explain uniformitarianism, however you pronounce that, and it was shown to be wrong and discarded. As someone who claims to be an expert in evolution and creation, Kent should know that that's no longer used, but he insists that it's still being used today.
The Grand Canyon was formed as the flood went down.
No. Just no. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to watch part 2 when I release it. I'm sorry today was a little bit late. It should have come out yesterday, but like I said, he talks way too much, or types way too much in this case. I will get that one edited and out as soon as possible. If you like what you see, please hit the like button and hit subscribe. Also hit that little bell so it tells you when I put up new videos. That'd be cool. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. If you have anyone you want me to review, Christian, atheist stuff, or transgender stuff, please go ahead and send me a request or put a question down there. I'm always looking for new stuff to go over. And thank you. You have a great day.